Jack Whitehall!
I started doing stand-up when I was about 17. I'd never had the chance to have a gap year, and I thought it would be funny to take my father with me. I want it to be an authentic experience.
Which side of the road do you drive on?
Right, left. Mind that bus.
What are you looking forward to most about this?
I'm looking forward to us bonding. I thought you said we were staying in a hotel.
Hi. I'm Jack. This is my father, Michael.
No.
He is very bad with foreign people.
I'm a US steward.
Thank you so much, Stuart.
He said steward, not steward. Did he look like a steward?
How would I know?
She's gonna give you a special treatment.
I bet she doesn't get much repeat business. You'll be sitting on your crown jewels. Jack hasn't got very much down there, so I don't think that'll be a problem. They went to his brother, unfortunately.
Oh, right.
Gap year has begun.
You're going towards the rock.
This is beautiful.
But literally everyone else watching it is a couple.
Oh, we're a couple. We're just father and son.
Yeah.
It's rather nice. Weird, but nice.
Jack, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Congratulations on the show.
Thank you, thank you.
It was a loud show. I don't know how I went up there for some reason. I love it. I think it's really funny.
Thanks.
I love your dad.
Yeah, he's, I do too, I think. Maybe slightly less so than I did at the beginning of the trip, but I do still love him.
When did you guys start shooting this? When did you go on the trip?
We shot this in March, and we were there for about 5.5 weeks, and it felt like 5.5 years. And we traveled around Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam.
And what made you want to travel with your dad?
I'd done quite a lot of work with him. I'd done shows with him. I'd done a chat show with him. I'd been at the Edinburgh Festival with him, and we'd never done anything like this. And so it felt like a chance to really put me and mainly him out of our comfort zones and do something completely different. Yeah, I just thought he'd be a fun travel companion.
Were you more or less out of your comfort zone than your dad was?
I was a little out of my comfort zone, but like, I didn't feel like it was ever that bad just because I was watching him floundering away and thinking it's not as bad as that.
How did you present the idea to him?
I think I got him a little drunk and just threw it out there and saw how it went. And he took a little bit of persuading. I think he liked the idea of doing a travel log and going like backpacking, but his suggestions for where we went backpacking were ludicrous. Like, we could go to the south of France, and I was like, that's not really where people go and travel. That's just a holiday. So getting him to go to Southeast Asia, that was the big hurdle.
And getting him to possibly stay anywhere but a 5-star hotel was a pretty big hurdle as well.
Yeah, he insisted on staying in 5-star hotels everywhere we went, and I put up a little bit of a fight, but not much of a fight because they're quite nice to stay in.
And you stayed in one, you're like, oh, this is
once you stay in one, you're like, I could get used to this. Right. So yeah.
I love the moment in the first episode though where you introduce him to everybody in the hostel, and all he says is goodbye.
Yeah, straight out. They were very unnerved by him. I think they were just genuine people in that hostel. They didn't know what hit them.
Wait, really? Was that?
Yeah, there was a guy in the shower. We didn't realize he was in the shower, and we started filming the room, and he walked out, and he was like in his towel. He was like, "Who the hell are these people, and why are there cameras in my dormitory?" So yeah, that was an odd experience.
One of the things that you state at the beginning of the piece or of the show is that you never really got a gap year because you started doing stand-up right away at like 16, 17 years old, right?
Yeah.
What has that been like for you to sort of start doing stand-up that early and keep going?
Well, I guess I love it, and I've always loved it. And the minute I started doing stand-up, and I did my first gig aged 17, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And so since then, I've worked very hard, and I have gigged constantly because the only way you can get better as a stand-up is through stage time and through doing more and more of it and turning over as much material as you can. So I've been working solidly for 10, 12 years, and because of that you miss out on quite a lot of other kind of life experiences like traveling and holidays and stuff like that. So because I've sacrificed that to pursue this stand-up, I've missed out on things like this. So that's why I thought I could do it here.
Did you miss out? Do you feel like you missed out a little bit on the sort of life of someone in their early to mid 20s as well, and like hanging out and just sort of like partying a lot, or did you get that doing stand up as well?
Yeah, a little bit. Like,
Were you forced to sort of do that with like old like road stand up comics?
yeah, no, I sort of kept dipping back into, like, all my mates all went to like college and they all lived in a house together, which I lived with them up in Manchester in the north of England. So I lived there, but was going off and doing gigs and like bits on TV and stuff, but still living in this sort of rank college house. This sort of frat boy house.
Yeah, frat.
Yeah, and then going off and like doing shows on the BBC and coming back and sleeping in a room with no mattress. So yeah, it was quite an odd.
Or just like a mattress
early
on
20s.
the floor.
Just a mattress, yeah, or like pizza boxes, just to make it nice and soft.
What was your
It
biggest
was
fear?
it was such a horrible house. The house that I lived in. It was 3 years. It was so terrible.
How many guys
I remember
lived
there
in
was
it?
a thing where if a light bulb went out, you wouldn't go, "Oh, we need to change that." You'd go, "Well, this will now be a day room that we."
How many guys lived in the house?
There was about 5, and then it went up to 6 or 7. We lost our front door. Like, how do you lose a front door? Like, it got like kicked down, and then someone like lent it up, and then it went missing. So we didn't have a front door for a while.
Did people actually say, "Oh, we lost it" when asked?
Yeah. There was like, it was just you had to put like a bin liner up over the door. It was horrible. It was really.
What happened to your
horrible.
door? And people, I don't.
Yeah, it's just someone was misplaced. Yeah.
Those are the worst houses that when we look back on, we remember like. I lived in houses like that. And it's like, oh, I had a great time. But looking back on it, I think, was I depressed? How did I live like that? It was
Yeah.
like a nightmare to live like that.
Yeah, it was. It was ridiculous.
Did you feel that way at the time, or did you enjoy it at the time?
I enjoyed it at the time, but I wouldn't want to go back there. It was horrible.
So you take your dad on this trip. What was your biggest fear about going on a trip like this with your dad?
Him offending people, I think, would probably be one of the main things that I was worried about. Him in a foreign country where there's customs and cultural sensitivities, and he's a bit of a sort of wrecking ball in those situations. So
Not taking in any of it and just taking it for granted.
Yeah, just saying the wrong thing, using words that we don't use anymore, things like that. I mean, I sat him down before we went and, gave him a little kind of heads up on certain things that we can and can't say, certain things that we should and shouldn't do. And so, yeah, he was warned.
Did he have questions about those things, or did he understand right away?
Yeah, I mean, some of the cultural customs are quite, strange, it's rude to point with your feet in Thailand. He was like, why would I do that? I'm not going to be pointing with my feet. And stuff like, there was another one we were told that you're not allowed to touch a monk. And he was like, I had no intention of touching a monk. Why would you need to warn me of that? But yeah. So,
That's true. I've been to Thailand, and no one told me not to point my feet or touch a monk, but I did neither of those things.
If you do both of them at the same time, that's really bad. Then you're in serious trouble. Like that and that, then you're thrown in jail.
Look at that monk over there, this monk right
and
here.
And you're patting one there. No, not good, not good. Unless it's one of the silent ones, and then it's fine because they can't tell anyone.
Can't do anything.
No, yeah. Those are the ones to touch them as much as you want, and there's nothing. I instantly regret saying that. Do not touch any monks.
Like the guard in front of Buckingham Palace, right? They can't really. Is it Buckingham Palace?
Yeah.
They can't really do anything.
They can't do anything.
Shitty American tourists go over there and go, ugh.
Yeah.
To them the whole time.
Oh yeah, people that live there as well do that. It's not just tourists. Don't worry, we do that as well when we're drunk.
Did you do that with any silent monks?
Any silent monks trying to distract them. We did meet some monks. It was so bizarre. We were in Cambodia and we went to Angkor Wat and we went to a temple. And we went to this monk school and we met all these monks and we were filming with them and we were quite nervous about what you could and couldn't do and all these things and customs and then the cameras stopped filming and this monk came over to me and he was like, can I have a selfie, please? And I was like, yeah. And he whipped up his habit and he brought out his smartphone and he was like, he had a selfie and he was like, I'm going to put it on Instagram if that's all right. He had an Instagram account. And I was like, you have Instagram? And he was like, yeah. And this smartphone's great. And then he went, I love you on YouTube. I've seen you on Live at the Apollo and Fresh. And he'd seen all my shows. And it was so weird. It was such you get a sense of how small a place the world is now because of the internet.
You have so many questions about, you're a monk. Don't you feel like the internet is, sort of encroaching on us and crushing us emotionally? Like, how do you breathe as a monk with the internet?
I'm afraid at that moment in time, my ego took over, and all I was thinking is, I'm so pleased that I'm big in the monk community. Because I never thought that was, there's probably loads of monks watching now on their Verizon phones, because that's, I'm just big in the monk world. What can I say?
And I feel like you should name your next stand-up special Big in the Monk Community.
Big in the monk community, yeah.
What's it like? I'm always curious when I watch travel shows and, you're going to these places for the first time, and obviously you have a job to do while you're there, which is shoot the show.
Yeah.
But do you feel like you get to take much in that you really get to take in these countries a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I think a huge amount, just because you're doing stuff that you just wouldn't do were you just traveling there, especially me and especially him. Like, if we went there on our own with no cameras, we wouldn't leave the hotel. He'd sit there by a pool reading a book about World War II, and we'd have dinner at night, and that would be it. So you're forced to go out and to do these things and have these experiences, and we got to do some crazy things, and I got to have some experiences with my dad that I never thought that I would go to a full moon party on a beach with my father, but I did.
The full moon parties, that's Koh Phi Phi, or like the islands there?
Yeah. I was in the one in Phuket, and it was very intense. It was like, he told me, he said, there's a fair amount of stuff that I will do on this trip, but this full moon party, I've been warned, I know what it's about. You have 15 minutes of my time. I will walk in, I will look at my watch, and 15 minutes later, regardless of what we're doing or what you're filming, I will turn around and I will leave. And he was true to his word. Like, we had 15 minutes. It was the tightest shoot ever, but it was great, and we got exactly what we needed. So then for the rest of the shoot, I was like, if you want to pull that again, then I'm perfectly happy for you to give them the 15-minute rule.
Did you stay at the full moon party after he left?
I stayed for a little bit, yeah.
Did you have a good time?
A little bit for the whole thing. I needed to let off some steam. It was about a week in, and I was like, I need to have some experiences on my own.
Are the full moon parties good? I was always worried about them.
They're a bit tawdry.
Well, it's a strange thing because you're on this like absolutely beautiful, stunning beach, and it's just getting annihilated by this party.
Yeah, which is kind of appealing, in some way. I do like getting annihilated, so that element of it I kind of took to with aplomb, and I had a jolly time. I would highly recommend, but just don't go to one with your dad. Yeah. Should I tell you the other weirdest thing that happened that was not on camera that happened whilst we were there? And I think it will haunt me for the rest of my life. And it happened on day one of the trip. And we arrived in Thailand. My father, 77, has never been on a long-haul flight, so he had really bad back pain. So he spoke to the hotel in Bangkok, and they suggested that he get a massage. So my dad was like, okay, I'll get a massage. But he'd heard stories about massages in Bangkok. And he said, I will only get the massage if you sit in as well, in case there's any funny business. I was like, you want me to sit in whilst you have a massage? I was like, I really think you're overreacting. He was like, well, just in case she gets carried away, I'd feel safer if you were there. I was like, I don't think she's going to carry. You're a 77-year-old man with like gout, wearing like Y fronts the color of weak tea. I think your sexual magnetism is not going to, it's not going to be overcome by it. I had to sit in a hotel room in Bangkok with this poor masseuse giving my dad a back rub, like eyeballing her, like a kind of prison guard at a conjugal visit, going, hey, hands where I can see them. It was so weird. And that was day one. I was like, this is going to be a long trip.
Did he enjoy the actual massage?
The massage, yeah, it was great. And
because aren't Thai massages like really intense? They're really, they like really sort of dig into the muscle and everything.
Yeah,
right?
it was quite. I tried not to look, to be honest. I was just trying to go to like a happy place, not happy. Don't use the word happy in that story. A different place, a place that wasn't in the room, watching my 77-year-old dad getting massaged.
I imagine the moment where you're not paying attention, but he feels like she's moving the wrong way, and it's like, Jack.
It was so weird.
What's the weirdest thing that's on camera that people can look forward to in the show?
The weirdest moment of the trip was probably this scene with Steven Seagal, which happens in episode 3. We're in Bangkok, I'm in the hotel, I walk down past the restaurant and I see Steven Seagal having breakfast. I was like, that's Casey Ryback, and I believe he's eating breakfast in our hotel. I've got to go over and say something. So I went over and I was like, oh, can I get a selfie? And his manager was English, and he was like, oh, this is Jack Whitehall. He's a comedian in the UK, Stephen. And Stephen was like, oh, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm filming this travel log. He was like, would you like me to be in it? And I was like,
He's a busy man.
Yes, I would. Yes, I would. And he was like, okay, I've got an idea. This will be really funny. I'm going to walk out of the hotel, and you come up to me, and you ask me this question, and then just ask me this. And he asked me this thing about, like, I needed to ask him what the essence of Zen was. So I was like, okay. And I went and told the producers, like, can you just go outside and film? Because I think Steven Seagal is about to come and do a joke on camera. So he walked out, and I went, hello, Steven Seagal, I'm a fan of yours. What is the essence of Zen? And he threw me in a fountain. Because the essence of Zen is to submerge yourself in it. Now, yeah, hilarious. He didn't tell me that he was going to do that. He just threw me in a pond and then just walked off and got into his car and drove off without signing a release form or explaining what any of it meant. It was so surreal, and we all stood around like, what the hell just happened? I just got judo chopped by Casey Ryback into a fountain. And so then eventually they found him and managed to get him to sign the release form. So that element of it is in the show. And then, like, his manager was like, on the last day that we were there, he was like, do you want to have lunch with Steven Seagal? So I was like,
oh my God.
I've got to kind of see how this one ends, I guess. Like, yes.
Did you bring your dad?
I brought my dad. So me and my dad had lunch with Steven Seagal in this hotel in Bangkok. And it was exactly as weird as you would imagine me, my dad, and Steven Seagal having lunch would be.
How did your dad and Steven Seagal get along?
Apparently they have a mutual love of Winston Churchill. So they were talking about Winston Churchill, and he was like, Steven Seagal was like, oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of Winston Churchill. And my dad was like, I have a huge collection of Winston Churchill books. And they're like, and then they were talking, it was going really well. And Steven Seagal was like, I'm also a huge fan of Vladimir Putin. And my dad was like, I am not a fan of Vladimir Putin. I have no books on Vladimir Putin. And then I remember this. I thought it was quite surreal. It was all a bit of a blur, and I couldn't remember everything that happened. But there was a moment at the end where I looked over at Steven Seagal explaining to my dad how you could kill an attacker with a samurai sword if he runs at you. And I thought, I think my dad and Steven Seagal lead quite different lives. I don't know whether that is a transferable skill for Michael Whitehall as he's going around Putney getting attacked by like ninjas.
So Steven Seagal has lost his mind a little bit.
Look, I don't want to badmouth him because he's very big and very strong, and he's already chucked me in a pond once. And I did not know him before. He's certainly an eccentric man, but he was game for a laugh, and he took part in our show, and it made for a very surreal moment in our show. So for that, I'm thankful.
I would like to sit across from Steven Seagal over lunch. That would be unbelievable.
He's a good an interesting lunch companion, I would say.
Did he know a lot about Winston Churchill, or was your dad like, I have a collection of books, and he was like, oh, I'm a big fan too?
No, he did actually seem to know a fair bit about Winston Churchill. He was a big fan of Winston Churchill. So there was a lot of talk of that.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has a question right here? Hello.
Hello. Hi, Jack.
Hello.
I'm a huge fan, especially of your stand-up and your like British TV programs. And as a fan, I noticed that a lot of your comedy is very British, but I think you're quite popular here as well. So I was interested in what you think about how your comedy translates, and if you'd be interested in doing more stand-up here.
I would. Are you a monk?
I'm not a monk. I can be touched, and you can point your feet at me if necessary, but I don't know.
I'd like to do more stand-up out here. I've just been in Toronto for the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival, which obviously is Canada, not America.
Yeah, not New York.
No.
It's the better America, to be honest.
North America.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, it was really interesting to take my show and do it in North America and see what translates, because it's so terrifying when you're not doing it in England, because you're worried that there'll be something that you've missed. You go through everything, you think of every joke, like all of these things, all of the references you change, but there's always one that's like slipped through the net, or a word or a reference. So it's very nerve-wracking doing a show when you're not in your kind of home nation, and so it does take a little bit of adjusting to, but I really enjoy it, and I loved it. I loved doing the gigs in Toronto. I did a show in New York last month, and that was great. So I'm very keen to do more stand-up out here.
Great. Hope to see you again then.
Yeah, thank you.
Next question. Oh.
Hello. I was wondering if you have any ideas for other seasons of the show, other stuff you'd want to do with your dad and capture on camera.
Yeah. Then, I don't know. This is like one of those ones where I would probably like to do another one, and I don't know where we'd travel to. But yeah, where could we go?
It's tough.
It's tough.
It's tough to choose places.
Because you need to pick somewhere that's, North Korea? Just get in there quickly. I don't know. I don't know where we could go that we would put ourselves again out of our comfort zone. But we were keen to do it again. And so it would be nice to find somewhere that we could go.
How much time apart did you guys need after the taping stopped? Or were you good?
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen him since. No, it was... We took a fair bit of time off. To be honest, one of the most stressful things has been doing promotion for this, because a lot of it's live. So having him in a live TV environment is always quite unnerving. So we've been doing that, and you're just always worried that he's going to say something or tell a joke that's inappropriate.
Isn't your dad? Maybe I misread this. Isn't your dad like formerly like a big agent, right?
Yeah, he was an agent and a theatre producer back in the day. So he's quite savvy. He knows the industry, I think, and he knows the world of TV or stream. Well, he doesn't know streaming services. That's a lie. He kept asking me, when he could tune in to watch this and when he could tell his friends. I was like, it's on all the time. And he's like, all the time? Well, aren't people going to get bored of it? I was like, no, it's not on loop, or it's available any time. So explaining to him what Netflix is has been quite a struggle.
He didn't know Netflix?
No.
Did that force him to do like a parent thing where it's like, oh, your little show or something, where it doesn't sort of register as big of a thing as it is?
I think so, yeah. I don't think he's fully aware. And also because Netflix goes all around the world, that again, is something that you don't really think about when you're doing it. And then you get tweets and you're like, people are watching it in Germany. And I'm like, oh, God, that is not a territory that I would necessarily want my father's brand of humor to be broadcast across. He's made a lot of German jokes down the years. So, yeah, you have to be careful.
Let's get one more question.
I think maybe this lady here with a microphone might be a good
See her there.
option.
Snuck up on me.
I love the show. I already watched it, binged it all the way through. I just want to make sure Winston's okay. What happened to Winston?
Oh, that doll. It has a Twitter account now. Someone said I have a Twitter account of it. So yeah, Winston the Doll, which was this creepy look tap doll, which is this thing that we were given in Thailand to give us good luck, but it's like a little child that we took round with us on the trip. And my father's kept it. And it's in his sitting room, and he bought it a little suit. It's so weird. It's so weird. So yeah, Winston is alive and well, I guess we can say well, but yeah, very unnerving.
Jack, I love the show. It's on Netflix now. People can check out Travels with My Father. Is there anything else that we should throw out there for people to take a look at? Follow you on Twitter, check out your stuff.
I've got another show coming out on Netflix soon, a Netflix stand-up special. So.
Oh, when is that coming out?
That's coming out this month.
This month?
No, next month.
Next month.
Because there's only one day left of this month, so it's definitely
true.
Next month.
Is it called Big in the Monk Community?
Yeah, Big in the Monk Community. Yeah.
It's an audience of monks watching you do stand up. Is like a really funny.
It would be so good. I should do a monk gig.
Performing at temples across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Jack Whitehall. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.